during the Bible study session. It was so cold. I couldn't really hear what was being said. My wife's teeth were chattering so loud. We have a neighborhood Walmart in our neighborhood, right, close to the house, and I've been wanting to ask them, why don't you just set all the milk and everything right out in the aisle, because it's cold enough in here. You don't need to put them in a cooler. It is so cold in that store. It's like walking into a refrigerator. I would say ice box, but most of y'all don't know what an ice box is. Unfortunately, so do I. Well, we're going to talk about spiritual warfare again tonight. This is going to be our concluding lesson. We could go on, believe me. I really didn't want to do this in 4 lessons. I wanted to do it in 2, but to really cover things appropriately, and we're not going through all of the Black Book, obviously, or we would be here for several more lessons. If anybody has any questions for me after the service, it's going to be really busy with tables and that, but if anybody has any questions, or the next week, well, we're leaving Sunday for a couple of weeks too, but come to me, I'll try to answer your questions. We have a little bit of experience with dealing with demon spirits and spiritual warfare. The next venue we're going to talk about is perhaps one of the most important areas of warfare praying, and it's binding and loosing. Binding and loosing. Binding is forbidding. It is disabling demon spirits, prohibiting them from what they are doing or what their intention is to do. It is not literally binding, such as when the Bible talks about angels, they're in chains of darkness. They're not in literal chains. They're not chained up in a dungeon somewhere. They are running free. But their future, their destiny is set. It is predetermined at this point. So when you bind, you're not going to bind them permanently. You're just going to keep them from doing what they want to do. And of course, loosing is the opposite of that, is permitting or giving permission or releasing that which can work, opposite of what demon spirits are proposing to do. Matthew chapter 18, verses 18 and 19 says, "Verily I say unto you, whatsoever ye shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven." Now that means that heaven's going to back you up. God's going to have your back. He's going to stand behind you. You can speak these things with authority and be assured that you have God's permission to do so. Of course, then whatsoever ye shall loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Again, I say unto you that if 2 of you shall agree on earth as touching anything that they shall ask, it shall be done for them of my Father which is in heaven. We understand that we're not really doing it. We are just speaking it forth. It's God, and perhaps even his angels are involved in bringing to pass what we are saying when it comes to binding and loosing. So, we bind spirits that are hindering. We bind spirits that are opposing or interfering with God's will, with God's work, or with God's people. We bind those spirits. And if we do not bind them, they will continue to interfere and hinder the work of God. But we also bind spirits that are hindering or influencing people, family members, could be governments, local or national. Spirits can be involved in situations. There are a lot of times that you will run into people that are just very difficult to deal with, and it's because they are demon possessed, and that devil knows that the Spirit of God is in you, and they will not like you. They will hate you, to be honest with you, and they will do their best to make your life miserable. You will not win in argument with that person. You will only win by binding the spirit that is in them, silencing that spirit. So when binding spirits, it's important, it's very important that we also loose something in its place. True. That's why it's binding and loosing. Whatsoever you bind in earth shall be bound in heaven. We do that by loosing the opposite of that which the evil spirit is manifesting, plus everything else that we can think of that will enable that person, those people, or the situation that we're praying for, that they will be able to submit and follow the will of God, the Word of God, and the righteousness of God. We have to loose something in their place. When Jesus cast the legion out of the demoniac, they found him clothed and sitting and in his right mind. God took the torment out of him and put a right mind within him. And then he told him, now you can go home. So that's very important. 1 Thessalonians 2:18 says, wherefore we would have come unto you, even I, Paul, once and again, but Satan hindered us. Now, throughout the course of this, preparing for this, I thought a lot about Paul's thorn in the flesh. It probably took him a long time, to figure out that spirit, that evil spirit that was buffeting him was sent from God, and it wasn't going to go away. That's one spirit that Paul could not bind. He could not get rid of. Prayed 3 times, and said, no, it's not going anywhere. You need this, but my grace is sufficient for you. But here, he admits to the fact that Satan hindered, not just him, but them, his mission team, hindered them from going to visit the church in Thessalonica. I know this may amaze some of us, and you may think, well, if Paul couldn't win the battle, then what chance do I have? But I want you to understand from the standpoint that even this mighty man of God fought demon spirits, probably more so than we can even possibly imagine. You're not going to win every battle. Let me say that to you tonight. You're not going to win every battle. You're not going to go to heaven 100-0. I mean, sometimes you're going to get frustrated and lose a battle here and there. But get up, dust yourself off, and charge back into the fray. Now, how did Satan hinder Paul? Well, we don't know exactly. We're going to present another scenario in just a moment. But the only way that Satan could have prevented Paul and his missionary team from going to Thessalonica would have been by using people to come against them. The devil can't just put a wall up and say, we all can't leave the building tonight. Can't do that. He doesn't have that power. He doesn't have that ability. So he couldn't just rise up and say, Paul, I'm just not going to let you go to Thessalonica. Paul would have laughed at him and said, get out of my way. So he used people. The devil uses people to hinder the saints of God. So Satan was involved in this personally. A lot of times he sends his minions, but in this particular case, he was involved in this situation personally, and he was able to exert his influence upon ungodly men or ungodly people, not necessarily men, and he convinced them to do his bidding. Now these men, most likely they were men, they probably already hated the truth. They already hated Christians, they already hated the church, they hated God, and so it wasn't a stretch to convince them to do things that would prevent Paul and his team from doing the will of God. 1 Timothy 4:14, this is another situation. It says, Alexander the coppersmith did me much evil. The Lord reward him according to his works. Now, just plucking that out of the scriptures, we may not understand the exact situation here, but Paul referred to Alexander in his first letter to Timothy, which is why Alexander, we'll read this in just a moment, why Alexander had such a loathing for Paul. He hated Paul's guts. He hated God. He hated the church. So it's written in 1 Timothy 1:18, this charge I commit unto thee, son Timothy, according to the prophecies which went before on thee, that thou by them mightest war a good warfare. I wanted you to see the context within which Paul places what he is writing to Timothy in this letter. It's in the context of spiritual warfare. Then he writes, holding faith and a good conscience, which some having put away concerning faith have made shipwreck, of whom is Hymenaeus and Alexander, whom I have delivered unto Satan, that they may learn not to blaspheme. Now, there's a whole lot of stuff that we could talk about surrounding what Paul did to Hymenaeus and Alexander. But Alexander did not learn not to blaspheme. Alexander, instead of learning the error of his way, repenting and coming back to God, which was the intent here to begin with, Alexander became an instrument of Satan, an instrument of the devil, and was used by demon spirits to come against Paul and to do much evil unto him and to others in the kingdom of God. He became a pawn of the devil. That's what people do. They become pawns of the devil. Whether he was demon-possessed or not, we have no way of knowing. But a lot of people that Satan uses are demon-possessed. They have spirits within them. They may not fall on the ground and foam at the mouth, but there are a lot of people you run into on a daily basis that are possessed by demon spirits. I don't know if that shocks you or not, but it's the truth. So either by influencing or by occupying the people that oppose Paul and oppose those that travel with him, they were unable to go to Thessalonica. They were physically, literally unable to go and do the will of God because of the warfare that was going on in the spiritual world. All conflicts, disputes, or confrontations with people are the result of demonic influence.
Amen.
Yeah. Carnality and wickedness does not need any motivation. But just human nature will cause this. If you have a problem, I'm going to take this out of the church, I'll take it at work. You have an issue going on at work, what do people do? They start talking to other people and forming what? Alliances. You think the devil doesn't get in the middle of stuff like that? Man, it's like a pool of fresh water. He dives right into that. Man, that's his playground. He loves that. We have to be aware of what is going on around us. A lot of people assume that if it's God's will, it will come to pass. That's not true. We just read that it was God's will for Paul to go to Thessalonica. He didn't get there. We assume, well, and I've heard people, the people of God say this through the years so many times, well, if it's God's will, it'll happen. Really? It's God's will for nobody to be lost. Is everybody saved? God could exert his sovereign will, but he doesn't.
Amen.
So by doing much evil to Paul, Alexander the coppersmith prevented him from doing the work of God and the will of God all the time that it was God's will. So the adversaries of God and of God's people are very formidable. There's no question about it. We do not want to overstate that. We do not want to understate that. Adversary is formidable, and it requires great faith, great persistence, perseverance to overcome demon spirits that come against us, or to challenge territorial spirits and take territory away from them that they have already claimed and laid hold to. Now that's a different ballgame altogether. It takes a lot of faith and a lot of persistence in order to do that. In Lesson 3, we addressed the diversity of angels. We talked about seraphims and mighty angels and cherubims and ministering spirits and all kinds of different angels in God's creation. And we learned that they look different, they were created different, they have different purposes. Some have 6 wings and some maybe have no wings at all. They're created for dissimilar purposes, but what we learn from that, when we consider the cadre of angels within God's creation, then we learn something about demon spirits, because they used to be angels, right? Of course, they were angels that followed Lucifer in rebellion, was cast down to the earth. They were created originally to be angels, and 1/3 of them followed the archangel Lucifer, the angel of light. So since demon spirits were formerly angels before they were cast down to the earth, stands to reason, by deduction, by extrapolation, that they also are different in size, in stature, in purpose, in appearance. They are different as well, just like the angels of God are different, because these demons used to be angels, but now they are dark and demented spirits that are here to destroy and to kill and to steal. So just as angels fulfill different tasks and purposes in God's service, and also in God's realm of angels, there are those that have authority, different echelons of authority, such is it in the kingdom of darkness and in the demons that are under the leadership of Satan. So they fulfill different roles. They're not all the same. Every spirit you come up against is not going to be the same kind of spirit. And to think that way is not good, because you will not understand a lot of times what you are dealing with. Now, at no time do we want to cast a spirit of fear on anybody, which we're going to talk about in a moment. But you need to understand that this is not